How's it going, guys? I'm Skylar with Pacific Coast Farmers Market Association. Today, we're going beyond the market to visit F.T Fresh in Fresno County, California to learn about specialty veggies like okra and eggplant. We're here to learn all about how they're planted, grown, and harvested, and we're excited that you're along with us. Let's go! Chong Thao has been a market manager with us at PCFMA for 12 years. You may recognize him from some of our Bay Area farmers markets like Vallejo, Union City, and Fairfield. Chong and his family are originally from Laos, a small country in Southeast Asia. Laos is a predominantly agricultural country, landlocked between China, Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, and Myanmar. The Thao family immigrated to the United States in 1991. They united with their family members in the Fresno area and began to learn the ways of farming in California. In 1997, the Thao family went into business for themselves, establishing F.T Fresh Farms and selling at local farmers markets. By 2000, they joined with PCFMA and started bringing fresh specialty produce to communities all over California.
Hi, this is Chong Thao. This is my dad's farms, our family farms, and this is in North Clovis City. We are farming here for the last 7 years. Total acreage is about 35 acreage. 20 here, 10 at the East Clovis, and about 3 or 5 down at South Fresno. We established the farms back in 1997. We do small, very small amount of percentage to wholesaler, like less than 1% goes to wholesaler or goes to the local grocery store. We start growing a lot of the green vegetable, more like some choy, which we don't grow anymore. We have bitter melons, eggplant, Chinese eggplants, long beans, Singapore, opal. Those are the main crops since we knew them from a native country, but we have expanded to other crops that are related to customer, what the demand is. We listen to what customer wants and we grow them. Depend on there's times when customer gave us the seed or the idea of where we grow them or how do we grow them. So we grow by what our customer wants.
So what does the term specialty produce mean? A lot of the crops grown here at F.T Fresh aren't typically what we're used to seeing at the average American grocery store. Instead, you might hear the term specialty produce used to describe some of the crops seen here at F.T Fresh. When Chong's family and other Hmong farmers immigrated to the United States, they brought with them seeds for the crops that they were accustomed to farming in their home countries. These vegetables, like kabocha, daikon, water spinach, and bok choy, are part of a traditional diet in many Asian cultures. The farmers market allows small family farms like F.T Fresh to sell their produce to local communities, which helps introduce these specialty Asian crops to a wider audience. By connecting with the community at the farmers market, the Thao families started to get a better sense of what vegetables their customers were interested in, and shifted their farming methods to be geared more towards the customers' wants and less about what they were accustomed to growing. They discovered that there was a high demand for other specialty items that weren't being represented at local grocery markets, like okra, for example, and different varieties of melon. These crops weren't part of the agricultural tradition in Asia, so in order to satisfy growing demand, the Thaos and their peers in the Hmong farming community adapted and learned to grow new items. Today, the variety of produce we see at F.T Fresh includes many native crops from Laos, as well as specialty items originally brought to the States from Ethiopia, Peru, and other parts of the world.
Okra here, 4 rows. We have the Indian beans, 2 rows of daikons here. A lot of Asian pumpkins and kabocha. Usually flowers are coming about mid-May, so they're good until September. You put in soup, or if you could dip into flour, deep fry them. You could do that too. Watermelons and cantaloupes and just melons about here. 2 rows, and this are Japanese yam. So by September, or October, we start harvesting them. And so you can see that because it's on the drip system, it's not too good as it grows overgrown and then it kind of blocked up the water. So the down here is not as good as toward the front where all the water system are coming. The Thai pepper, you have Italian sweet pepper, more Thai pepper. These are for cutting, cut it and just sell it in bunches of peppers. Sour leaves are here, about 2 rows here, sour leaves. You have okra leaves right there, which is right here. Ong choy, water spinach, about 4 rows. More okra leaf, a lot of ong choy or water spinach. You usually cut the whole thing, leave it just the bottom in, and then it'll grow within 2 weeks again, ready to go. Sweet basil here, Thai basil down toward the middle, lemon basil here, and then more pepper for cutting the top.
The same crop can even have different characteristics depending on what part of the world it's grown in. This is especially true with eggplant. Chong's family grows numerous varieties of eggplant from different parts of the world, and they are each just a little bit different from one another. Filipino and Chinese eggplant both tend to be long and slender and can range in color from light purple to almost black. Indian eggplant is sometimes referred to as baby eggplant because of its cute small size. They tend to have a brighter purple hue and a spherical shape. Similarly, Thai eggplant is also small and round, but is usually green or white in color and more bitter than other varieties. Globe eggplant, or American eggplant, is the variety most commonly known in the United States. They have a darker color and wider shape than most Asian varieties. Customers at the farmer's market are usually drawn to eggplant by its beautiful, unique coloring. To ensure the eggplant gets to the perfect shade of purple, a lot of maintenance goes into making sure the plant gets the right amount of sunlight.
The biggest complaint about the eggplant is the color. A lot of time because smaller farmers like us don't have the human labor force to help open up the plant so that it has the full colors to it. A lot of time, even though it's young, it didn't have the full purple colors to it. A lot of people say, hey, those are old already. We have to cut them in half and say, look, break it open, it's not old. We're just telling you because it's in the shade. So with the shade, it's not gonna have the color for it. For the outside, it would turn kind of yellowish to it. It has a yellowish mark and then it will turn really white. And that's when you know it's too old. When you break it open, you see all the eggplant seed inside. They're starting to be like a yellow or brownish seed. In a perfect world, it should be, if it's a Chinese eggplant, it should be fully purple, dark purple or violet. If it's purple but light white, it's meaning there's some shade in it. Filipino eggplant here, these you gotta cut the leaf, trim the leaf off like these to get it to the fullness of its color, especially the Chinese eggplant. You have to keep trimming the leaves so that the color is there. If you don't cut it, it turns to like a light white color. So yeah, so if you don't cut the leaves, this is how it's gonna look like, because it didn't have the full sunlight to it. Bigger leaves, just keep trimming them off like this, and then leave it that so that it has the full sunlight. And then if it has the full sunlight, it turns more purple. See? So we started with the seed back in November. You can do the nursery for it, and you will start putting it on ground by mid-March. Late May to early June is when you start harvesting. But if you have these in greenhouse, you can start harvesting these in April. If you want to beat the season, then you got to start early. Otherwise, you don't get anything to pick until August. And more eggplant here. These are Indian eggplant, smaller. Yeah, these. You have the Thai eggplant, which is harder to pick because they're kind of blend in, and you have to find them. So you have to search every single plant to see. You see, they're down there, but you can't see them because they're kind of camouflage. These are this color only. So you have the Thai, you have the Indian, which is almost the same, but different color, different flavor also. This is more of a spice taste to compared to this. These are more Filipino eggplant also. So the really the one that you really need to trim the leaves are the Chinese eggplant. 8 row of different eggplants. For these, we gotta put the stick and put the rope on it to help support. Otherwise, they start breaking off and they'll die off. The plant doesn't support, if they fruit, it doesn't support the standing. So these ropes are help to maintain the standing. The plastic is to help minimize all the unwanted grass. Because of labor issues, there's too many grass. We don't have the budget to buy chemical for it. So it's all by hands. This is to minimize the amount of labor for taking out the grass. If you don't, a lot of grasses like this will just be all over the place and it takes out the resource for a crop. So
Staking is also key in growing eggplants. Unlike tomatoes, eggplants are not a vining plant. However, eggplants produce large, heavy fruits. So without ropes and stakes in place, the eggplant would weigh the whole plant down, leaving the fruit to drag in the dirt. Plastic covers along the base of the plants also help the eggplants grow big and hardy by preventing the growth of any grass or weeds that would pull water and nutrients away from the eggplant. Another unique crop grown here at F.T Fresh is okra, which, like the different eggplant varieties, also requires a lot of maintenance. Okra plants can grow up to 7 feet tall and produce beautiful yellow flowers as the fruit begins to bloom. Okra is a warm weather crop that benefits from lots of sunlight and can tolerate little to no rain, which allows it to thrive in the Fresno County climate.
these okra, you gotta make sure you wear long shirt, double gloves, or it's gonna be very itchy because you gotta sort through all of it. They're grown all over the place. So you gotta sort through it and gotta make sure you have a shirt protected to the skin, double the gloves. I'm not sure what type is it. I know there's two to three types of okra, but we just grow the one that's easier to pick. There are another variety. It's harder for us to gauge which one is the good one and which one is the bad one for the other variety. This variety, we know for sure if we can pinch them and they are tender, then they're good to go. But if they're too old where you have to really use force, then yeah, that's old. The seed, again, the seed. At March, we start growing. We put about 5 seed in the central of the roots, and then that's when you start put it out. And if it's, as long as not frost coming in by mid-April, you'll be good to just keep it like this and then harvesting starting in June, actually. They started harvesting as short, but as you start picking them, you pick the central fruits here, and as you pick them, they grew about 1 inch or half an inch, and another fruits grew, and they continue to grow as you continue to pick, they continue to grow up. They could get up to about 7.5 feet. When you pick, and when they're too tall, you have to use the other hand and one hand and pick. But that will be until November, December, until the frost hit. Same thing, okra is every other day pick. You try not to pick these small ones. These will be ready in the next day, 2 days. And this for sure, this next day is good to pick. You usually try to pick these size and up. About this size and up. And keep the small one for the next day. Per row here, of the 5 gallons bucket, you could pick per row is about a bucket and a half. So we picked them today. We'll pick them because we don't have it in the market on Thursday. We'll save it until Thursday to pick, or save it until Friday to pick, depending on how the weather hit. If it's like this, you can save it longer, but if it's hot, 100 degrees or 95, 96 degrees and up, you pick them every other day to try not to have anything old.
The most difficult part about growing okra is harvesting the fruit. Once okra pods grow about 2 to 4 inches long, they need to be harvested every other day. That means checking the plant 3 to 4 times a week and picking the pods as they mature, so the plant can continue to produce more fruit. If okra pods are left to ripen on the plant, that plant will stop producing new fruit altogether. You have to be especially careful to wear gloves and long sleeves when harvesting okra, as the plant's sticky leaves will leave your skin feeling itchy and irritated.
If they're old, you just cut them off. And don't leave any old one on the thing here. Otherwise, you don't have any more new crops to pick. My parents, they call it, oh, it's the end of the crop when you don't pick them. The top doesn't grow anymore. And then, yeah, so you gotta make sure, even if they're old, try to get rid of them. So this is before, after the flowers, and then the crops. You call them okra leaf, but they don't really look like okra. I mean, we can go back and see if there's some seed over there. But yeah, they have the same texture. You use the leaf for just sliminess. Same thing, okra. You put them in the soup to have that sliminess to it. So it's about the same. But one is more of a veggie-like and there's more of a fruit-like. When they're ready to pick like these, they're good. They're just more like, I don't know, it's almost like a squash-like, but slimy. But yeah, you don't want to consume the old one. Yeah, they put it like the Filipino style. They put these in soup, make it that soup more thicker, and then they put all lemons in it to make it like a lemonade soup. My parents, they like it, the bigger one, the one that's still young but bigger. Let's see. They like to just cut in half, grill them, or deep fry them. You could put into powder, deep fry them, and eat it like that. Supposedly, okra is supposed to help with the ulcer also. People will also use these okra for help minimize that. You have to seal it in the bags and put it in the refrigerators if you're gonna keep it longer than 3 days outside before you eat. But if you're gonna consume it the next day or so, countertop, that's fine. Yeah. It should be fun. If it's soggy, it might be too long. You wait it for too long. I mean, it's still consumable, but it's not the top quality.
The life cycle for both okra and eggplant starts in the early spring when seeds are planted in the greenhouse. Once those seedlings have matured, it's time to be transplanted in the ground. Both okra and eggplant thrive in warm soil and are usually planted between the months of March to May. After being transplanted, it's about 2 months before the plants begin producing fruit. Harvest season for these crops usually begins in July and lasts until October when the weather cools down again.
Toward the end of the seasons, you'll go around all the crops here, find the ripe or mature, and then you pick those and then you dry it up and you take a seed and you start from that. When you find a mature plant or eggplant or any plants, fruits, for example, if I find something like this and I want to save it, I would just leave it in open in the shade so that it's not dried up by the sun, but at the same time it slowly dried up. And then you crack it open, start taking all the seed out, put it in a bag so that it's sealed in, doesn't have any bugs to take out the seed. And then by November, you put it back into and starting the season. There are some crops that you can't not buy the seed. So some crops that like the choy, water spinach, and the yam leaf. They don't have any seed. So it's plant by whatever the vine is. You gotta save those vines or else you'll lose forever. And those are transplanted or someone brought it from overseas. And it's just from sharing to the community. So like, let's say if I have it this year and another farmer didn't have it, they'll come and I'll share some for them for next year. But other than that, you can't buy them at the store. Families, friends, almost everybody in Fresno area, it's been sharing. Like if I know you, but I didn't know the other guy, but you know the other guy, so they'll get it, I get it, and everybody just kind of spread out.
Seeds for many native Asian crops, such as water spinach and sweet potato leaves, are not available commercially in the United States. The ability to grow these crops is entirely dependent on recycling, preserving, and sharing seeds within the Hmong community. Farmers like Chong and his family recycle the seeds of the crops brought over from Asia as part of the annual gardening cycle to ensure the produce is available the following year. Fresno County has the second largest Hmong population in the country. Within the agricultural community, Hmong farmers work together to preserve and promote their native cuisine, sharing their bounties and seeds between friends, family members, and neighbors to make sure the Hmong farming tradition continues to thrive.
Yeah, so a lot of the farming practice for smaller, very small farmers like us, where it runs by small family farms. A lot of the products that we grew are giving the seed or the crops is giving to us by our customer. And from that point on, we share that crops, that special crops to our friends, our family members, to fellow farmers, to spread all the crops to help fulfill the needs of all of the community in the market area for, I guess, California itself, community to fulfill the needs of that customer. So by sharing it, there's a lot of crops that they don't have it to sell commercially for, like the seed, the vine. Those are more, some of those crops are being taken from other countries, native countries to the US, and it's not commercialized for commercial use. And so by doing sharing, you were able to spread the needs of those native countries to those native people from where they're coming from. The sweet potato leaves, the yam, the water spinach or ong choy, those you can't get it here. It's by regulations of US, you cannot sell commercially with those seed or vine. So those are being shared across the small farmers. In the old generations, a lot of the farmers or generations older than us are saying, well, it's just farming, it's not a business. That's because back in the countries, everybody is growing for themselves food and not commercialize it. But the new idea, or what we wanted to encourage other younger generations to farm is not farming. It's a business to being your own boss, being the farmers, being able to supply that products to the community and not just farming for the family. We have been selling at farmers market since '97. We've been trying to go locally to anywhere between 20 minutes away from our house to 4 hours away from our house. It's important to eat from the farms directly is so that you know where the farming is coming from. If you have any question, concern, that farmer is directly right in front of you. You can ask them exactly the technique of growing instead of having something that at an outlet store where you don't know where it's coming from. You don't know when is it picked, how does it pick, what kind of chemical they put in. As a small farm to table, meaning the small farmers supply, you know exactly where it's coming from. Spending money at the farmers market helps those local farmers, the small, very small local farmers, to be able to sustain their operations. A lot of smaller farmers has no avenue outside of the farmers market or to the community store to sell their products. And by helping them at the farmers market, it helps them to sustain their seasons longer and their generations to continue growing. New generation farmers are growing to meet the demand of our customer now instead of the need from the farmers. The choice of growing that product is based on what the customer needs now instead of what the farmers knew how or what one wants to sell. So you start communicating with your customer and they're like, oh, we want this, we want that. Can you grow this? Do you have that? So we started to, as we know more customers, we started to go away with the crops that we grow and more toward the customer, what they want. Being the farmers market, they helps us the community getting the freshness off from the farms directly instead of a commercial or shipped out from out of country.
Over the years, the Thao family has adapted their growing practices to cater more towards customer demand and less towards growing what is familiar to them. Today, their farm is well balanced with a mix of unique native Asian crops, as well as North American crops and other produce from all over the world.
Being able to interact with our new customer, sharing new ideas, new techniques of doing farming, and also the share of the hard work that you are seeing in front of your eye of what you made of and how much they actually appreciate you at the market being a farmer yourself. We over the year, we have a lot of friends now. We have a lot of connections to our community that we sell to. It's becoming almost like very close to almost like family member now. It's like they come out even when they don't buy stuff. They come help and they'll help out at the market. They help my parents, myself, my family sells for us. And sometimes they have more knowledge than we have on that crops. So they were able to get to sell more than we did.
The farmers market bridges the gap between shopper and producer and allows customers to speak directly with the farmers and learn about where their food is coming from. For farms like F.T Fresh, the farmers market is essential for business because it allows them to build relationships with their customers and grow more of what people like. It also provides a space to market their unique crops that can't be sold at a standard grocery store. For Chong, the farmers market is more than just a workplace. It's a hub where the community can come together over the common love of food.
Spending money at the farmers market helps those local farmers, the small, very small local farmers, to be able to sustain their operations. A lot of smaller farmers has no avenue outside of the farmers market or to the community store to sell their products. And by helping them at the farmers market, it helps them to sustain their seasons longer and their generations to continue growing.
Well, that concludes another segment of Beyond the Market with F.T Fresh today. Thanks for coming along with us and learning about okra and eggplant. We can't wait to see you next time.